Hello, this is Dr. Jimmy, of course, at your service, and I'm in the middle right now between it's Saturday the 11th of June, and it's exciting because I'm a big football fan, that is soccer, as they say in this country, and or in Australia they'll say soccer there, because football is something else entirely in that country, something very different from what's called football in the rest of the world and what's called football in America. There you go, 3 different sports, same name. Confusing. Anyway, this is an exciting weekend for soccer because not only is Copa America still going on right here in the United States and in Florida, but also the UEFA Euro Cup tournament every 2 years. Actually, every 4 years, and this is the year for it. It just started this weekend. It's exciting, and just saw a marvellous match between Wales and Slovakia. Wales won. Yay! I'm also supporting England, and they'll be playing against Russia later this afternoon. So I'm very much in between those two matches. I'm going to very quickly, in the half hour I have between the two matches, try to do a video for you. Now, I don't know who I'm going to support when Wales and England meet, because they're in the same group. They're going to meet next round of group play. I don't know which one to support. It'll be I'll be all torn and like Jekyll and Hyde or something, rooting for both teams at the same time. It'll be exciting. Okay, so here we go. Because and Rooney is like my favourite player in the world, and he's Manchester United and also in the England team. So I guess I may have to lean toward England. Anyway, enough of that sports talk. Let's get right into the T-shirt of the day, which is the event shirt from Halloween Horror Nights 14 and 2004, the one that was in both Universal Studios Florida and Islands Adventure, the 2 times the Fear T-shirt. Yes, that's the one for today. And now let's go on to the continuing with the lovely history of Halloween Horror Nights 22. Once you're inside, there's no way out, which was held at Universal Studios Florida in the year 2012. Yes, the 22nd Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando Resort, but only the 19th at Universal Studios Florida, and the 18th to only be at Universal Studios Florida. There, clearing all that up for you. Crazy. But now let's continue. I left off talking about the Legions of Horror, and I talked about 2 of them, but I didn't cover all of them. So let's continue with the 3rd Legion of Horror. The Traditionals! Yes, the Traditionals. Oh, one of my favourite legions. They were so much fun, absolutely. And they were traditional Halloween spirits. So there were ghosties and ghoulies and lots of little pumpkin head fellows and goblins and witches. Pretty witch, all of them. But the large part of this traditional legion consisted of trick-or-treaters. Creepy little children with animal face masks. Quite spooky and bizarre, with the little jack-o'-lanterns that they collected the candy in, and they would scream and want candy from you. Give me candy, give me candy. Yes, little kids. But are they really children? Well, one of them sort of give a bit of a backstory about them, a little bit. One of them implied quite strongly that these were the same little kids we saw in the orphanage. You know, with an F instead of a PH. The orphanage. Ashes to Ashes, the house from Halloween Horror Nights 20 Years of Fear. You know, the kids all died in a terrible fire and came back as sort of revenants, ghosts, undead, whatever you want to call them, back from the dead, and raised up to do their mischief. Now they're shape-shifting spirits, taking the form of children, but they may have been children in life. Apparently, little orphans, morphins, morphing orphans. Hey, but we'll get to that word when I get to the not legendary truth, but the other one, Horror on Earth, which come up later in this series of videos. So all these little creepy kids, and they had there were some brilliant performances by many of these little tykes. There was, of course, the Owl Boy. He was wonderful in his little sailor suit with his owl mask. And then there was the Chicken Boy. He was quite fun too. There was, of course, Brave Kitty, a girl with a cat mask. And then there was, of course, one of the more outstanding, Tiger Astronaut in his silver astronaut costume, but with a tiger face mask. A bit incongruous. The costume mask didn't match. whatever. Still, you know, if you're just a little orphan child trying to dress up for Halloween, you get what you got, you know. You may have to pick up some hand-me-downs or whatever donated costume from charity or something, who knows. But the standout scare actor was a little girl with pigtails and a purple dress and the face mask of a fox. What does the fox say? Poison! Ah! That's one of the things she used to say. She was quite fun. There were two of them, of course, on each cast, but the one that stood out was the one with darker hair, and she was performed by one of the most brilliant scare actresses I've ever seen at Horror Nights. Her name is Beth Wicker. Brilliant. I think her first appearance was in 2010. Was it 2010? I think it was 2010. In the Coven Scare Zone. Was that from 2010? Yes. She played one of the hags. In 2011, she was one of the little elves with a chainsaw and blood and guts. Yes. And 2013, the following year, she was a little ballerina with a lamprey-like face in Cabin in the Woods. And in I don't know what she did in 2014. I'm sure she was somebody. But in I know one of the things she did in 2014, because she came back as an encore for a certain game that was going on, I think. Or was that 2013? I'm not sure. But she must have done something in 2014, I don't remember. But 2015, she was in the American Werewolf Houses, one of the female victim in the adult cinema. Oh, see you next Wednesday, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All brilliant performances, but her standout performance to date, the one that she gets much recognition for and has become a fan favorite, was Rosie, the Fox Girl. And she was so effing brilliant. I don't know how I can iterate this more than I can. Because not only was she totally in character and did wonderful stuff, and she would talk to you and lift up her mask sometimes and make wild faces and roll around the floor and all kinds of crazy stuff, but if she saw you at one point and then saw you later in the evening, she'd remember you and she'd pick up right where she left off. In fact, if you went to Horror Nights one day and then came back, say a week or a half later, she'd still remember you from the time before. Somehow she would keep in her mind all the people she interacted with, and she saw them again, she'd continue. It was like it's street theatre. It lifted Scare Zone into street theatre, and it was brilliant, utterly brilliant performance. She is a true HHN diva, right up there with her friend Karina's La Llorona last year, right up there with Lady Luck, and of course Erin as Chance, and all those 7 Deadly Sins, and the Terror Queen, that was Roxy, all the HHN divas, all. And for Beth performing Rose the Fox Girl, I just have to give her a standing ovation. Brava! Brava! Excellent. Can't get around it. She's just that good. All right. So brilliant, and it really made that particular Legion outstanding. So much of a fan favorite. They brought her back at the end of the event next year. Took her out of Cabin in the Woods, changed her clothes, and brought Rosie back at the end of the event in 2013 to reprise Rosie the Fox Girl for Legendary Truth. So you see, that just shows how much in demand the character was. It became a big thing. So, traditionals were lots of fun, and of course interacting with them was delightful because they're always asking for candy, and so you bring candy with you. You couldn't help it. I went in, I'm not going to bring food in from outside into the park, so I would go to the little candy shop when you first go in. There's a little candy shop off to the left, and I used to go there and buy a bunch of candy, and I'd give it to the to the traditional children, especially Rosie, but others as well. Give them candy. And they liked it. And as I understand, what I heard later is that they didn't keep the candy. Only the candy that was given to them by guests was donated to an actual orphanage for disadvantaged children. And so to know that the candy I gave was actually getting to real underprivileged children, that really made me quite feel good. It was like a noble thing that they did by handing that candy out that way, making someone's Halloween bright and beautiful. It might be quite dismal otherwise. So yes, again, good job, good show, like it. Made me feel quite good about the whole thing. So, traditionals, they were marvellous, but let's move on to the next Legion. So the 4th Legion of horror were all girls. Yes, an all-girls roaming horde, I guess you want to call them, an all-girl group of chainsaw-wielding maniacs. Yes, for the first time there was a chainsaw drill team that was all girls. Previously there'd always been all boys, all male chainsaw drill teams. I think last year was the first co-ed one they ever had, at least here in Orlando. But they had this all-female group, and they were the prisoners. The prisoners. And I guess maybe inspired by the hit television comedy, if they can call it a comedy. I guess they put it in that category for awards presentations. But it's sometimes a bit tragic as well, so I guess it's a comedy drama, dramedy. It's dramedy, isn't it? Like camel. Anyway, Orange is the New Black on Netflix, right? They're perhaps inspired by that. They're all prisoners from a women's penitentiary wearing bright orange jumpsuits, you know, the bright orange prison uniform. And backstory takes us to that wonderful, creepy little town of Cary, Ohio, yet again, because on the back it says Cary Women's Penitentiary. And the backstory is that there was a terrible fire at the Cary Penitentiary for women, and it burned, and a whole bunch of the prisoners got killed in this nasty fire, burning, smoke inhalation, all that nasty stuff, ew, icky. But they didn't just die, they escaped supernaturally, and now they're back from the dead, angry, pissed off, and ready to wreak havoc with chainsaws. Chainsaws, yes, chainsaw girls from prison, and they were totally into. I mean, they were some awesome scare actresses, completely in character, running about, shouting, yelling, cursing, you know, threatening to make you their bitch. Sometimes they succeeded, I think, I don't know, but it was quite marvelous. Just brilliant, brilliant. And of course, another huge fan favorite they brought back last year at 25, because people love them, the girl chainsaw team, the chainsaw prisoners. So now we come from an all-girl group to an all-boy group, you know, like a girl band and a boy band, you know, like Spice Girls versus NSYNC. No, not quite. So there was an all-male group, and this were called the Warriors. Ew, that's not a movie about Coney Island, you know, Warriors come out to play. No, that wrong thing. Originally, when I first heard about them, you know, because I hear things sometimes, Dragon Warriors is what I heard. Dragon Warriors. I was expecting some sort of medieval knight type thing with barbarians or something, you know, I was thinking, you know, Middle Ages. I was wrong. Wrong dragons. Shouldn't have been thinking about, you know, Lord of the Rings dragons. I should have been thinking about Chinese dragons. I should have been thinking about that sort of thing, because that's what they were. They were like ninja, you know, Wu-Tang, not Wu-Tang, you know, Wushu, Kung Fu type of martial arts sort of clan of ninja assassins, you know, some sort of Eastern thing. Except, of course, they weren't all Asians. There were some Asians. There were some Caucasians, there were some black people, there were some brown people, there were some other people of colour I've never seen in nature before. There are all sorts of different people of every kind, guys in this group, but they're all masculine and buff and athletic, and a lot of them had some gymnastic and maybe martial arts skills, which is perfect casting. So they're out there, and they're dressed in these costumes that are like made to make them look like they're all covered with tattoos. So it's like they're bare-chested with their manly bodies, all covered with all mysterious, esoteric tattoos of dragons and things and symbols and Chinese things all over them. But of course, they didn't really tattoo the boys, they didn't really do makeup, because that would run in the sweat and all that. So what they did instead was they put on these sort of skin-tight, allegedly flesh tone, which is kind of odd when you have people who aren't the same race. And so, you know, on the African American ones, it was pretty obvious it wasn't their skin tone. But anyway, what can you do? It's the costume. And so they're wearing this, but tight, so you can see their manly physique, you know, like they've got bare-chested with tattoos all over them, right? And leather pants, and a sort of half-face thing like this over their face. It's kind of black or leather or purple or something. And I think maybe even purple pants instead of purple leather. Purple was their colour. I'll get to the colour coding later. And they've all got those spear things, those kung fu spear things, and they're twirling them about, and they're marching in formation. And then they break up and attack people, and they jump around, and they do all back flips and all sorts of incredible things. There's one man in particular in this group who was able to do, I know, remember the spider walk from The Exorcist, the extended edition or whatever it was, you know, the special, version you never saw before version of The Exorcist, where they have the outtake they put back in of Reagan going down the stairs upside down backwards, spider walking. The guy could do that, and he's doing that in the streets, Hollywood Boulevard, at top speed, chasing people, running on all fours upside down backwards. Ah! It's creepy, scary, but amazing to watch. Athletic performance, oh my God. Yeah, it's astounding. Give him a gold medal for gymnastic scariness. Brilliant stuff. I like that group. Another one of my favorite groups. Not just because they were hot, because they were, but for other reasons. So it was marvelous. So those were the official Legions of Horror. And the website, when they first announced the Legions of Horror, they had 6. But then all of a sudden one was gone and was only 5. Well, what was the 6th Legion then? Zombies. And they were there. Actually, and were they one of the legions? Well, we get the horror on Earth, maybe they were. So, but there was a group of zombies, but they didn't roam the park like the other 5. They stayed in one spot. I mentioned them earlier. All this great horde of Walking Dead, lurching zombies, snapping at people, trying to eat them, you know, were all located in the Fisherman's Wharf, where they have the cable car turnaround thing, go around thing, right by the disaster attraction into the San Francisco area of the park. A huge teeming horde of zombies there, and of course that's right where you exited from the Walking Dead house. And like I mentioned previously, during a cast change especially, you come out and you're swamped by zombies on all sides. Brilliant. And they're there, great big horde, teeming horde of zombies. And of course, because the parade doesn't go through San Francisco, they could have some vehicles and some things there as props, all from the Walking Dead television program, the station wagon with the message to Sophia written up on the dash, on the windscreen, and some food supplies on the bonnet saying we'll be here every day, we'll be checking every day. Remember that from the 2nd season. And also the Kerry, Ohio school bus full of dead bodies. Again, not from the TV program at all, but nevertheless, a prop put there. Again, as I said, the warning. Kerry, Ohio school kids come on a field trip to your town, leave town. Exactly. Zombie apocalypse or some other apocalypse is bound to happen. So, but those weren't the whole streets, because there were 2 additional hordes of scare actors that were added in a bit later, perhaps to fill in dead areas, or to give more scare actors on certain peak nights or whatever the plan was. They sort of fit in with 2 of the legions, sort of, but they were really their own thing. And one was another group of zombies, completely different group, no connection to Walking Dead, and they were located only in that area which is today Springfield, USA. But back then was not Springfield yet. I mean, it was the area from the Quickie Mart all the way to the Animal Actors stage, and at that time it was called International Food Festival courtyard or area, because there was that big, well, now it's all Springfield, but back then they had a food court type of restaurant called the International Food Festival, which actually was crap. So it's a good thing they took that out and replaced it with Springfield, because, you know, the chicken with waffles and the pizza and the crusty burgers and the stuff you can eat there now is so much better than the really bad Chinese food and bad other food they had there. It was not good. I had some really awful egg rolls there. My God, I'm glad they removed that place. Didn't like it. It didn't really fit in with the theming of anything at Universal Studios. I mean, a World Expo Showcase, I guess the whole World's Fair thing for Men in Black, but it didn't really fit in, and I'm glad they removed it, because it was sort of out of place, because, you know, you have the Simpsons attraction between that and the other part, so why is it even there? So I'm glad they took that out and put it in Springfield, USA, big time. But back then, the zombies in that area were sort of a zombie wedding party. I'm not kidding. There was a bride, there was a groom, there was what looked like the preacher, there was a maid of honor, a best man, all members of a wedding party that apparently got infected and all turned into zombies. And they're quite horrible and yet amusing at the same time. I liked that. It was quite fun. And the other group of extra characters added in were apparently some relation to the traditionals. And what one person told me, because they couldn't quite figure, but apparently someone said what they had heard was they're meant to be adult trick-or-treaters who had loved trick-or-treating and Halloween as children, and then decided, and as they got older, to keep it up and go back, but they were quite insane. And so there were all sorts of people, just like pirates and fairy princesses and others, and some of them had knives and they had like those plastic see-through masks, and some of them were trying to kill you. A whole bunch of them, there were stilt walkers up above. There was one who had a costume that was left over from, I think, 2002, with the crossbones. You know, the Marvel Comics villain Crossbones. That sort of design on the front was from the island Under Siege in Marvel Superhero Island scare zone that they had way back when. They reused that costume as part of this group, and they had all sorts of these stilt walkers, and they tended to show up somewhere around Kids Zone, but then they made their way quickly into Hollywood Boulevard and go toward the Plaza of the Stars, and that's where you normally saw these stilt walkers hanging out. Quite interesting, but not just sort of an added-on thing. But that's not all that was left in the streets, because of course in the streets was the Rat Lady, making her 22nd appearance in Orlando. And once again she was in the streets that year, usually on Hollywood Boulevard, sometimes in the Plaza Stars, but I think usually Hollywood Boulevard. And they sort of tied her in with the Vampire Legion. How so? Well, her attendants, the male attendants who pushed the glass coffin of the Rat Lady and all her little rats scurrying about her body in upper dress, all of them were also sort of dressed sort of Edwardian or Victorian costume with pointy fangs, and she seemed to be fanged as well. So it was like this was the vampire Strangort, if you want to use that word, version of the Rat Lady that year. And so that's the streets. So we'll go on to the shows, but first, cocktails. Well, that won't be in this video, but the next one. And I won't do it right away because it's 2:20 p.m. and that means it's 10 minutes till England faces Russia, and I have to see that match. So sometime later, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, I'll continue part 12 with the cocktails for the legions, and then the shows. Ta!